Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well. This afternoon, we're going to learn a couple of Rashi, two Rashis actually, from the fourth Aliyah in this week's Parsha of Vayehi. In this week's Parsha, and specifically in the Aliyah, we're going to look at the Torah transitions to the brachos, which Yaakov gives to his children on his deathbed. And it's a fascinating study to try to understand the nature of these brachos. Number one, are they more prophetic or are they more wishful, i.e., are the brachos predictions of what Yaakov understands will be in terms of the future of his children, or are they wishes and tefillos and prayers for what he hopes for them, or a combination thereof? Also, how do these brachos to the tribes compare to the brachos of Moshe Rabbeinu and V'zos HaBracha to the tribes? There's a lot of interesting things to say about that. But I wanted to focus for a second on this pasuk of the bracha to Shimon and Levi. So he gives their brachos together as opposed to the other brothers, which are given separately. And we've seen how they are really a unit together in the Torah before, specifically in the semi-war that they waged in Shechem, but also in terms of the way that Yaakov treats them. We saw a few Rashis like that already. They're viewed together as a unit. They're viewed as attached in some way or needed to be separated in some way. We saw that even with Yosef. And the reason why he picked Shimon in specific to be the one that's in prison, one of the interpretations Rashi said is because he wanted to separate Shimon and Levi. He was afraid of an attack. They go together and they're considered the military arm of the Shvatim in some way. So he blesses them together, Shimon v'Levi, Achim, Klei Chamas Mecherosehem. He right away singles out the fact that the weapons of war are their trade. It's their trademark. And he talks about what they did a little bit. And then he says, Arur Apam Ki Az, let their apam, their af, meaning their nose, but really the nose is symbolic in the Torah of anger. Let their anger be cursed, Ki Az, because it's very strong. The Evrasam ki kashasa, and their anger because it's very difficult, it's very hard. And therefore, Achalkem b'Yaakov v'afitzem b'Israel. I will separate them in Yaakov and I will spread them in Israel. So it's clearly talking about some type of punishment for the fact that they waged the war, which Yaakov was not in favor of, in the city of Shechem, or in the people against Shechem, Hamor, the people of the city. The question is, what exactly is he saying here? So Rashi says, Arur Apan. He points out something very important and interesting. He says, why doesn't he just say, Arur Haim? Their Arur, they should be cursed. Why does it say that their Apam should be cursed, that their nose or their anger should be cursed? He says, Afilu b'shas hatochacha, lo kilel ela apam. Even in this moment of rebuke, he's only cursing their anger, not the person. It's an amazing thing that even when he's so upset with them, the fact that at the end of his life, this is what he has to say to his children, Shimon and Levi. It's almost jarring, especially when you see, although there are other critiques of the Shvatim in the brachos, but you imagine brachos, his aspirations, his nevuos, his hopes for his children, he's going to say beautiful things. So it's surprising to begin with that he includes tochacha, a little bit of rebuke. But what Rashi's pointing out here is the rebuke itself is subtle, it's nuanced, it's not a total rejection of who they are as people, it's targeting the particular trait that they have that he disapproves of, and giving tochacha against that, giving rebuke against that. Similar to the famous Gemara about the conversation between Bruria and Rabbi Meir about their neighbor, who was a bad person, and in the end, she darshans out the pasuk, Yitamu pasuk in Tehillim, Yitamu chataim min haaretz u'rishayim odeinam, that sins should be eliminated from the land. So she darshans that pasuk and says, you should never hope that the sinner should vanish. You should hope that the sin should vanish. Distinguishing between the person and the action, something we know very keenly from modern psychology and behavioral analysis, that is very important in the context of a parent-child, in the context of a friendship, in the context of a teacher-student relationship, that you criticize and call out the action and not the person. You don't develop contempt for the totality of the person because of one action they did. You target the action. And that's on the side of critique or the side of praise. We understand that today. When you just blanketly praise a person, it's not as meaningful as when you target exactly what they did and praise them for that. It's part of the whole idea of growth mindset. And a lot of the psychology attached to that, but certainly on the critique side, you don't want to critique and reject and negate the entirety of the person because of their action. You want to single out the action that's problematic. And that's what Bria says to Rabbi Meir in that context. You shouldn't hope that your neighbor should disappear. You should hope that his sins should disappear. Itamu chataim, not chotim. Not the sinner should disappear, but the chataim, the sins of the sinner should disappear, so that the sinner should become a saint in some way. Excuse the language. So here I think it's the same thing. Rashi's pointing out that in the end of his life, Yaakov is offering critique, an important critique to Shimon and Levi about the fact that their rage led them to wage this war, which was either unjust or certainly uncalled for. And he criticizes here their rage in specific, arur apam. It's not them that are cursed or that should be cursed. It's not them that are now discounted or disqualified or canceled in our modern cancel culture language, but rather their particular action that's problematic, which he's singling out, is their rage, what they did in their time of rage. Arur apam kias, the evrasam, it's their anger, their rage that's kashasa, that was very difficult, that was very problematic, and therefore should be arur, therefore should be cursed. So that's the first part of the pasuk. Second part of the pasuk, also very interesting. Because of that, what does it mean, achalkem b'Yaakov afitzem b'Yisrael? Achalkem b'Yaakov, Rashi says, afridem ze mizeh, shelo yalevi b'minyan hashvatim, harehem chalukim. Is this achalkem, I will split them within the tribes of Yaakov, meaning, will Shimon and Levi be split up? Or is it saying I'm going to split them up from the rest of the tribes? So one interpretation, Rashi says, I want to separate them from each other. Just like Yosef wanted to separate them from each other. He's afraid of attack. So they may be a bad influence on each other. He wants to separate them out. And therefore, Levi is not part of the Minyan Hashvatim. They're not given territory in the land of Israel. They're separated out, and therefore they won't be with Shimon in the same way. They won't be attached to them in the same way. Davar acher, ein l'chaniyim sofrim mlamdi tinokos el mishimon, kedei sheyu nefutzim, ushvato shel Levi asau machazer hagronos l'trumas u'maisros nasan lo tefutz asau derech kavod. So they split them up in a different way. We say that perhaps there are no aniyim or sofrim or melamde tinokos, no poor people, no sofrim, or no people who teach kids except from the tribe of Shimon, so that they will be spread out. They will be plentiful. We need a lot of those people, and they'll be spread out. However, Shvato shel Levi aso mechazer al agronos l'trumas u'maisros, and the tribe of Levi, in a different way, has to beg for money, but in a kavadik way. They're given it in a respectful manner in terms of trumos and maisros. The second interpretation is saying that both Shimon and Levi are separated from the rest of the tribes. They gain a distinct trait or identity or mechanism in terms of their relationship from the rest of the tribes, whereas according to the first interpretation, there really is separation of Shimon and Levi. Not Shimon and Levi from the rest of the tribes, but Shimon and Levi from each other. Just two different ways of looking at Achalkem b'Yaakov. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. You too, everybody.
Well, take care.
You too,
Thanks
Rabbi.
very much.
See you later.
Yep.
Thank you.